This week on World Stories. The Munich massacre remembered. One step ahead of the census in Venezuela. But we begin in the USA. Undocumented immigrants who arrived in the US as children were protected from deportation by a program implemented by President Barack Obama. Trump's reversal of this policy could affect up to 800,000 people.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
They are here to stay. They came from all over the country to the capital, to Washington, D.C., to make the point that they belong here. Norberto Lopez has just graduated from California State University. I'm American. I live here since 22 years, and I'm 23 years old, so I arrived here when I was 1 year old. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up here, I studied here, I work here. Whenever I go back to Mexico, they say I'm American. And when I'm here, they say I'm Mexican. Most of them came to the United States before they turned 16. Now they are young students and professionals. With the Trump administration scrapping the DACA program, they may have just 6 months left to clear up their studies in the U.S. Valeria Mejia Guevara arrived here when she was 3 years old. She's now 20, studies international relations and speaks English, Spanish, French, and Mandarin. Since DACA, she has been able to build a life here. Her parents are illegal immigrants who arrived over 15 years ago and started a business named after her daughter, Vale. Valeria is convinced that immigrants, and especially DACA people, are a big bonus for American society. Being an undocumented person has never been a problem for her. I have never been afraid of being an undocumented person. In the contrary, I am thankful for that. If my friends gave 100%, I always had to give much more. And that is why I am now where I am. Valeria insists that she is not afraid of being deported. She says that no matter what happens, she will keep fighting for her dreams.
It's taken 45 years, but this week a memorial to the 11 team members murdered during a hostage-taking by Palestinian terrorists at the 1972 Munich Olympics has finally been unveiled. DW met two of the widows who have spent decades ensuring that the victims were not forgotten.
The events of September 1972 are ever present in the minds of Ilana Romano and Anki Spitzer. This photo shows the Israeli national team in Germany shortly before the games were set to begin. Their husbands were killed in the attack. Since then, these women have worked to ensure that the 1972 massacre at the Munich Olympics is not forgotten.
He was really looking forward to going to Munich, and all of them were proud to represent Israel at the Olympics. This is the real Yossi, always smiling. I don't want to think what his last minutes were like.
Ilana's husband Yosef, or Yossi, was a weightlifter. These photos show him at a training camp with his daughters. He was one of the first victims killed by the Palestinian hostage-takers on the morning of September 5th. Another of the hostages held in the room was Anki Spitzer's husband, Andrei, Israel's Olympic fencing coach. Anki Spitzer had initially traveled to Munich, but then had to leave for Holland to be with her sick daughter. She watched the hostage crisis unfold on TV.
And I suddenly saw Andrei in front of the window. And I saw that he was tied with his hands behind his back. There was one terrorist standing next to him. Of course, I could see him on television. I could not hear what they were saying, but he was talking to the crisis team. It's on live TV, you know. It was the first time they showed the Olympics on live TV. That was really the last time I saw him alive.
The hostage crisis ended disastrously. The hostages were taken to a military airbase in order to be flown to an Arab country. But a poorly planned rescue attempt at the airport by German security services failed. All of the Israeli athletes and one police officer were killed. A few hours later, Anki Spitzer went to the Olympic Village building where the athletes had been held hostage.
So I went up, and the scene inside the room, I cannot even describe it. It was one huge chaos. And that's where I made my vow, and I said, if this is what human people could do to other human beings, I'm never going to shut up about it.
For years, the two women campaigned for a permanent memorial to honor the athletes killed in the attack. Finally, after 45 years, that wish has been granted.
Most migrants and refugees reach Europe via the Mediterranean. Many of them end up in Italian reception centres, but some, like Caramo from the Gambia, are offered shelter by the church. We caught up with him while he was shopping in the Sicilian city of Catania.
Buying chicken to cook home-style for dinner might seem routine for many, but it's a luxury for 23-year-old Caramo, something that wasn't possible for many months after he left the Gambia. Along the way, he'd almost given up hope. But now shopping like this at Catania's market is part of his routine too. He says it gives him a welcome sense of self-sufficiency.
It's just like being reborn again. You are moving on with a new life because you see the past as a story.
His new life is now here at St. Egidio Church. The communal kitchen is over the vestry. Mass is held downstairs. On this floor, Caramo and other refugees have a place to eat, sleep, and meet friends. Even though he says his journey from the Gambia belongs to the past, Caramo can't forget all he endured to get to Sicily.
I passed through Senegal, Mali, Burkina, Niger, Libya. Then the other 2 months, 15 days, I spent it in prison in Libya because I attempted to cross to come to Italy. Then I was arrested with the boat. Then they locked me up. I see people who have been tortured in my presence and people who attempt to escape, then they have been tortured.
Southwest of Catania is a refugee camp. This is where Caramo was taken as soon as he set foot on the island. Many leave the camp during the day. A bus departs for the nearest village at 10 o'clock sharp each morning. No one wants to talk about money or work on camera, but many earn something under the table. Some work in nearby orange orchards. Some of the women turn to prostitution. It's precisely this drift into the shadows of illegal activity that the church in Catania is trying to help the migrants avoid. Caramo says he made the right decision to stay at St. Egidio for the time being.
My life outside and in the camp would be different, but I can say after a couple of months I just started to integrate, because coming to the city, seeing different things and seeing the city life is different from the camp life.
Caramo says he's grateful every day that the helpers at St. Egidio have taken him in, all the more so because he's not Christian but Muslim. The congregation, he says, has become like an adopted family for him since his arrival in Europe.
To Venezuela now, where the split between the government and opposition shows no sign of abating. Instead, economic turmoil and violence have increasingly marred the presidency of Nicolas Maduro, and censorship is widely viewed as a tool of suppression. We have this exclusive report.
It may look like it, but this is no typical editorial meeting. These journalists at El Carabobeño newspaper are proposing ideas to improve their website. It's one of the few remaining ways the paper can get information to the public after it was forced to scrap its print edition.
The government tried to censor us by not selling paper to our company, but we decided to carry on with our fight. Journalists will always want to battle, but not all media owners are ready to take the risk. The owners of our newspaper are risking everything.
The printing press fell silent last year. The government had argued the economic crisis meant selling paper to El Carabobeño was not a priority. The independent local newspaper is over 80 years old. Now its imposing headquarters in Carabobo's capital are close to empty. Despite its reduced team, El Carabobeño continues its critical journalism. Editor-in-chief Carolina Gonzalez says that's led police to target her and other colleagues while they were covering protests.
I just had time to get behind a glass door and push it shut. That's when he fired a tear gas canister that shattered the door. I had 3 shards of glass in my eye and needed 8 stitches on my cheek and 9 on my neck.
In Venezuela's capital, Caracas, a creative approach to informing people has managed to evade government censorship. Bus TV is an initiative to spread news on the city's most popular bus routes. The project has been so successful that it spread to several other cities in Venezuela.
As long as there's censorship in Venezuela, this style of news reporting will be relevant. It also helps inform the more than 60% of Venezuelans without internet.
Today, Bus TV has invited well-known bloggers to join their team of reporters and experience the unique interaction with their audience. Back at El Carabobeño, editor-in-chief Carolina Gonzalez hasn't lost hope that one day the paper will come back into print.
Here in Venezuela, surrendering means leaving the country. But those of us who stay here have to struggle against censorship.
Besides El Carabobeño, the government has closed 13 other regional newspapers. It's also banned 4 international news channels and shut down 42 radio stations. With social media set to be targeted too, Venezuelans have ever fewer options for independent information.